insulated metal water bottle. If I looked at the search term like women's pink rubber coated insulated water bottle, like that's my exact product. Now, the more specific you get to the product, the more specific the search is, the lower your search volume is going to be. So what we always look to do on product launches is like we try and find the intersection between good search volume, and good to us is like maybe even a couple thousand depending on the budget, that also have really good relevancy to the product. Because what you're trying to do is you want to get in front of your exact shoppers. So example would be insulated water bottle is going to be really expensive and not super specific to my product. Like it's kind of specific, but not really specific. I'm trying to say like, okay, where can I start getting super specific to my product, but it's going to have enough search volume that I can get the sales volume that I need. So I would focus more on that versus that I would looking at only search volume. A bit of a technical answer here is we don't quote move them, meaning we're not going to pause the existing keywords. We're simply going to launch them in another match type. Again, make sure to keep the bids lower. Amazon actually, if you read their recommendations, they recommend keeping bids lower on broad and phrase match, even lower than the exact match. When we would launch those is honestly really dependent on performance of the account and availability of the budget. So if you launch a keyword in exact phrase and broad, so you have 50 keywords, right? And you launch them in exact phrase and broad, you technically have, 150 keywords that you've launched. And the potential of broad and phrase to spend could be quite high. So again, you just want to make sure it makes sense. It seems super simplistic, but if you are in a phase where you're struggling to control total ACoS and ACoS, to fix those two numbers, it really means that you have to lower down your ad spend with ideally little to no impact of the total sales or the ad sales in the case of ACoS. If you introduce a whole, again, those 50 keywords in exact phrase and broad, and those you probably need to test and optimize the bids, etc., you're introducing a lot of additional ad spend into the account. So you do want to be aware of that and be careful with that. So that's kind of a benchmark that we use. But overall, I would say, I don't know if I would have like a certain time frame or a frame which I would hold back on. It really is dependent on the performance of the account. Another good question, which best bid strategy for phrase and exacts when you move? So again, we don't really move them. We would simply launch them in addition. We like to separate them by campaign as well. I think it gives us a little bit more control over, say, budgets for things. Now, as far as the bidding strategy, we're a super huge fan of using mainly dynamic down only. If it is a keyword that we want to ensure that we get impressions for, so for our launch keywords, for our main keywords, for anything we're trying to be aggressive with, we prefer a fixed bidding strategy. It's still going to be the same. It's still going to be pick highly relevant keywords. One other tip is pick keywords that fit within the budget of the account that you're launching. So for instance, if I have a couple $100 a day budget versus $50 a day budget, those launches are actually going to look a little bit different because I can't afford that many clicks on a $50 a day budget. Or if I had, a couple $100 or $1,000, I have a lot more room for clicks. So actually, you want budgets to play into your launch strategy. The other thing that you want to keep in mind, do not expect profitability on launch. This is a huge one. There's a lot of people that try and pull back and knee-jerk for profitability right out of the gate. That is not going to happen. The reason why it's not going to happen, and I'll tell you the numbers behind the numbers, is that ACoS is just going to be high on your product launches, and that is a function of two things. One, the aggressive cost per click you have to set to be able to get visibility in the beginning, and two, how low your product conversion rate is going to be, especially if you're launching without reviews. Those two things, once you start to be able to bring your cost per clicks down because you gain momentum or you're optimizing your bids, and then two, once your product conversion rate starts to increase because you're getting those reviews, maybe you're optimizing your listing a little bit more because you've learned more about your target market, that is going to help bring down your target ACoS. So those things, again, conversion rates are going to be low, high cost per clicks. That's actually like the nuts and bolts of why your ads are not profitable, and it's almost unreasonable to expect profitability in the beginning. And that's actually why, if you've ever had a product where you're like, no matter what I do, I cannot seem to bring the ACoS down, struggling here, it's a function of that your conversion rate is remaining low and it's not improving, and your cost per clicks are remaining high and you're not able to improve them due to the market or something else. So again, I would still say pick highly relevant keywords, Also, make sure that whatever keywords that you have fits within your budget. Launch them. Aggressive, sponsored product, exact match, potentially sponsored brand video, exact match if you have the creative. Double down on that for a couple weeks and then start expanding. Hello, and welcome back to another Ask Junglr segment. So Earl said, I hope the recording team you missed it. So you did not miss it. You just caught the intro. So those are actually past recordings from snippets from any of our previous shows. So you are most definitely in the right place. So I'm excited. So if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the comments. And if this is your very first time joining us, hello and welcome. I see some returning watchers, listeners, I don't know what you would call it. And so basically the theme of this show, just to give you a quick recap, is use the Amazon or use the comments. I was going to say Amazon. We're not on Amazon, although we are on all the streaming platforms. So whatever streaming platform you are listening in on, feel free to drop your Amazon ad question into the chat. I'm going to be here for an hour. Looks like we'll probably have enough questions to keep us going for an hour. So if we do, I'm going to be here every step of the way. And I'll give you your best answer possible. Sometimes we do get questions that are not around Amazon advertising. I do tend to prioritize the ones on advertising because that's where my area of expertise lies. And I feel like I can speak with the most confidence on strategies there. And if you are listening in, catching the replay, we welcome you as well. You can catch us every single week, rain or shine, pretty much. Although we didn't stream on Thanksgiving because that falls on a Thursday, but day after Christmas, we're here, we're still cooking, and feel free to, again, drop the questions in the chat. And another quick recap, if you don't know who I am, hey, my name is Elizabeth Greene. I'm one of the co-founders Amazon Ad Agency. I'm the co-founder with the Amazon Ad Knowledge, specifically trying to gain on business knowledge, but definitely know what the heck I'm talking about when it comes to advertising. And so that's why we have this segment here. We try and bring all of the School of Hard Knocks, all of the information. We have experience across a plethora of different categories: high-priced items, premium-priced items, scientific equipment, baby, clothing, supplements, all of the above and everything in between. And while there are the tried and true strategies that really are universal, you also have to know how to adapt those strategies to your specific account and the challenges that you are facing, which is why I love segments like this. So again, feel free to leverage the chat wherever you are watching on whatever stream. We'll pull it up and we'll get you some answers. So with that, let's start diving into it. By the way, oftentimes I get a ton, like a flood of questions towards the end. So if you have a question, make sure you drop it as soon as you think of it. If I say something and you have a follow-up question to it, feel free to drop a follow-up question as well. However, we're going to take them in the order as received. So if you get first question in, if we get towards the end of the segment and there's a bunch dropping in, you may not get your question answered. So if you got one, I would recommend dropping it sooner rather than later. All right. Abdullah says, how to analyze competitor, how to beat them, and how to know how they are advertising. So this is a multifaceted question, but a really great question. And I'm going to be speaking strictly from the Amazon advertising perspective. I'm not going to go into like listings, although listings and all of that super important as well. Analyzing competitors. So when it comes to that, reverse ASIN searches are really beneficial here. So that's kind of what you would want to do. Again, outside of my realm of expertise in terms of the optimization, but I do know how to use PickFu to say like, hey, does my listing stack up against my competitors? So that's what I would be looking at in the beginning. So it's a little bit harder on launch because you don't really know your metrics. Once you know your metrics, then you can leverage things like search query performance reports and brand analytics inside of, or brand metrics, I believe is the name of it. inside the ad console to say like, hey, where do I stack up against my competitors? So in the beginning, you just want to know like, where are they advertising? And then you're going to cross check where they are advertising with what you know is most relevant to your product. The other thing that you can do if you want to know where someone's actually advertising, there's a couple ways to do it. One is you can go in and you can reverse ASIN search their products, which can be helpful. You kind of have to do that product by product, or another way that it gives you a little bit more insights because it will break it out in terms of what they're doing for sponsored products, sponsored brand ads, which can be helpful, is Smart Scout. Has a lot of really good competitor analysis tools baked into it. So you could use Helium 10, Smart Scout, Viral Launch are some great ones that we would leverage for doing that. So the beginning, you're just like, hey, where are they ranking? Where are they advertising? How do I get more granular based on that? And then once you launch, you have the data for it. Then you say, okay, so where do my conversion rates stack up against my competitors? So you want to use search query performance reports to do that. And then you continuously run that cycle and validate it. However, I will say, once you start getting data, you definitely want to optimize based on your specific performance and where you do best, and not always just blanket apply what competition is doing, because their metrics are going to be different than yours. You're basically using competitor metrics to validate that you are strong in the market. All right. Hey, Elizabeth, glad to see you again. Just see you as well. Someone reached a person who managed their Amazon account. They're recently selling and running some ads, but haven't invested time in optimizing. Their strategy and sales are low despite having some reviews. Should I focus on improving their existing PPC campaigns? Or be better to treat this as a relaunch and create a fresh strategy? I really value your guidance on this. I would say whenever you can find anything in the campaigns or the current ad account that is working well, and to clarify, when I say working well, I mean driving sales. So whenever you can find something that is driving sales in the current ad account, you definitely want to protect that and cultivate it. It's not a good strategy to go in and just like turn everything off and then completely redo it. As much as that will give you a cleaner campaign structure, if you go into an Amazon ad account, even if you straight up copy an existing campaign, that new copy typically doesn't perform as well as the original for whatever reason. Every ad platform has its nuances. That's one of the nuances of Amazon advertising. So from that perspective, our goal when we go into a new ad account is like, what is working? What can we keep? And then what in this structure is not working? Spending, i.e. spending money and not generating sales, let's get rid of it. And then we reassess what that like refined structure looks like how many keywords are actually keeping. Sometimes it's like 2. How many campaigns are actually keeping? Sometimes it's like 1 or 2, or maybe it's a lot. And then you look at that refined structure and you say, okay, what we call it like plugging the holes. Like, what are we not advertising on that we should be? So an example of that would be like if you pare down the structure and you're like, oh, all that's left that was actually working is like 1 auto campaign. All right, we need manual campaigns. And then you go through like that process of, okay, so let's get the search terms that we're working and launch those in manual campaigns. Or you pare down that structure and you're like, oh, this is only ever sponsored product ads. We should add in brands and display ads. Okay, so then let's go about the process of doing the research to launch those. Or pare it all down. You have manual campaigns, you have an auto, and you're like, oh, wait, actually, when I'm looking at the search terms, product targeting works really well, but oh, we don't have any manual product targeting campaigns. Great. There's my launch structure. So when it comes to like plugging the holes, it's basically like pare it down. What do we got? What are we left with? What are the next best things to do that we don't already have? Build that, and then you work your way up from there. All right. When I see the community live sessions while they're holding a holiday, wow, should you committed, helping? Thank you. Yes. So day after Christmas, back to work. I didn't work Christmas Day. I did send out a newsletter on Christmas Eve though, but that doesn't take me that long. Our sales were going smoothly, but suddenly there was a drop in sales. There was no problem in our advertising. We don't have any negative reviews. I want to know how to analyze it if there is a drop. That is a fantastic question. So I will give you the simplified version to go on a treasure hunt. Maybe not a treasure hunt because we're not looking for treasure. We're looking for problems, but an investigative research. Okay. This became a light bulb moment for me when I realized there's something that I call the Amazon sales growth equation. Gave it a fancy name. It's basically like an Amazonized version of the numbers that everybody always talks about when it comes to growing sales. In anything. Could be Shopify, could be, doesn't matter what it is, right? Okay. So this is, you can do, there's 3 numbers that work together to drive sales. One of them is traffic. So the question is, how much traffic am I getting? How much of that traffic am I converting? And then when I convert that traffic, how much am I making? So traffic on Amazon is sessions. How many sessions am I getting? My unit session percentage or conversion rate, how much am I converting? And then when I make a sale, how much am I making? So this would be like average order value, or is kind of equivalent to sale price, but it's not exactly sale price, okay? So then your investigative research is to take your business reports and say, which of these 3 things changed? And then I'll talk about the further investigative research. So to figure out which of these things changed, you find the point of change. So you're saying our sales are going smoothly, then there was a sudden drop. So figure out the date of that sudden drop. Look at the data after that. So from that drop to today, how many days is that? Is that 3 days, 4 days? Doesn't matter. Then you take that same date range and you apply it before that. So you want apples to apples in terms of number of days that you're comparing. And then you're going to say, was it that the conversion rate dropped or was it that traffic dropped? Which had the biggest impact? And if you figure out it was a traffic drop, then you say, okay, depending on how many products are in the account, you probably want to do that same investigative research on a product level. So you say, okay, which products had the greatest impact, because you're always going to have bestsellers or something. And then you want to go investigate that product. So, okay, the drop was traffic and the traffic drop happened on this specific product. Okay, then I need to go investigate what are the levers of traffic. Well, one of them is ads. You said that there wasn't really any drop in what you're doing with ads, but it could be that maybe all of a sudden cost per clicks went up. And so the bids that you had previously, which were competitive, are no longer competitive. That could be a factor. What is the search volume? Was there a search volume drop on the traffic? Was it that you dropped off the first page, which you're ranking? And so you look at all of the factors that drive traffic for that one specific product. And then you investigate and you figure out what changed. If it is a conversion rate issue, then you figure out, okay, what are the factors of conversion rates, right? Is it where I'm appearing on the search pages? Is that all of my competitors dropped their prices and therefore I'm no longer competitive? What is the, so you're trying to narrow in on the point of change and the biggest levers of change, and then you become an investigative journey, and it's helpful to narrow that down to a specific product. So whenever you have a sudden sales drop, I always want to know which product drove this sales drop, and then I use that ladder to go on that investigative research, and that will lead you to the correct conclusions. All right, running auto campaigns for products with variations. If all the variations are in one ad group and I can only see 1 or 2 that's performing and others don't, what's the best approach? Should we pause the underperforming variations, or is there a better way to optimize for all of them? Yes, so just pause the underperforming variations. Traffic is still going to the listing, and so you should be totally good there. If you really want to make sure that there is traffic on those like lesser performing variations, one thing that we have done is you can take either each of those variations or maybe the group of like the lower performers, and you can put those into their own auto campaign. But you definitely want to make sure that you have like lower bids, because again, if performance is less, you don't want to be paying as much. So but if you don't launch another auto campaign for them, as long as traffic is getting to that listing, there are going to be some eyeballs on those variations, so you should be fine. All right, a two-parter from Joseph. Joseph always has amazing questions. How does PPC work by variations, by regular ASINs? If someone clicks on them A but purchases them from B My Catalog, then the clicks or sales will still be attributed to ASIN A. That is the same case when it comes to variations. What happens when I break up the listing? Will it start spending through the roof? Yes. If you break up variations, spend will go through the roof. The reason why is because for every single parent ASIN or like overall variation listing, you're eligible for one advertising spot and one organic spot per the parent ASIN, which means if you break up the listing, all of a sudden, like say there was 5 different variations, every single one of those variations is eligible for an ad spot, which means that you can get a click on every single one of those variations. So instead of only paying for one click for somebody to go to the parent ASIN and be able to see all the products, you're suddenly paying for 5 different clicks, right? Potentially. And so you can imagine how that would stack up really fast. So yes, it is. We actually had one. We had one brand that came to work with us. That was one of the problems that they were having, is that their listings were constantly, like Amazon does that sometimes, where they'll split up listings, and all of a sudden, whenever that happened, their ad agency wasn't catching it or wasn't flagging it to them. And so all of a sudden, like their ad spend went through the roof because everything got split, because it was a clothing. So you can imagine how many variations are potentially on clothing. Like their ad spend was just like going crazy, and there really wasn't anything that the ad agency was doing to control it other than like catching it whenever the brand caught it. Unfortunately, the agency wasn't internally flagging it. So yes, and it's not always bad to split up. You just got to know how it's working. And you were asking about how it works. Yes. So if work by variation because of regularity. Yeah. So if somebody clicks on variation A and then goes on to purchase variation B, that click, which is the spend, and then the sale is going to be shown on item A in your advertising versus item B. But in your business reports, it's going to obviously show whichever one they actually purchased, which is going to be item B, which is why total A costs can sometimes look really bad and like weird on large variation listings. One other thing you can do is, this is something I love to do, is you can pull a sponsored product purchase product report, and you can actually, it will show you a column for the clicked product, so whatever product got the spend, and then it'll also show you a column for the actual ASIN that was purchased. And you can create a pivot table. So this is what we'll do, is we'll create a pivot table to show, okay, when this product A is clicked, which product is purchased. And you can sort of map that path and see, because sometimes what happens is that one product gets all the clicks, but another product is getting the purchases. And that's not always a bad thing, but you just want to know how to optimize your ads to take advantage of that. When getting more focused on PPC, I see people add data dive in addition to their Helium 10 subscription. What can be the 3 to 4 reasons that recommend data dive subscription when it really is. Data dive will give you a quicker way to pull the data into like a dashboard in the way that you want to see it. Can you get away with having one or the other? Yes. It just depends. Does your workflow with any software, does the way the data is displayed, does it help me get to actions quicker? Because whatever you want to do with analysis, the analysis is only useful if you're going to do something with it. That's actually sort of my problem with a lot of the, and trust me, I love to get lost in the rabbit hole and the what ifs and the ideas and the analysis and like, just the sheer like interestingness of the analytics and all of the things that you can pull out and understand. But you always want to bring it back to, what am I going to do with this information? And so the thing that Data Dive does very well is it displays the data in a way that is useful to understand patterns and to get to the doingness maybe slightly quicker. There's more ways in which you have to manipulate helium-10 data to really get to the doingness. And so there's not really like, oh, one is better than the other. It's just what is the most useful for you in your workflow and how you like to look at things and use it. Joseph, will you start using business placement modifiers? Yes, so we've already started testing it. It works really well. So we would optimize it very similar to how we would any other placements. And so our philosophy is always that placements are not the end all be all. I know I come up against a lot of people who very much adamantly disagree with me there. I'm still, in everything that I've seen, I'm a very firm believer that placements are only a performance enhancement of things that are already working. They are not the main thing that you need to optimize for. I can talk at length of why I believe that and why I will die on that hill, but that is my belief. So when it comes to the business placement modifiers, that's the same thing. If we see that a business placement is outperforming everything else, heck yes, why would we not want to get more of that? Now, the one thing that you will see if you go in, or typically we'll see if you go into the business placements, is that there's not as many impressions on business placements as there is in, like, say, your regular impressions. So for those reasons, you're only going to be able to get so much performance enhancement out of it. But if you see it's working, fantastic, do it. And how I would recommend testing it, just test a small increase, 5%, 10%, 20%, and see, like, can I get more from this? If yes, great, do more of it. I set a schedule to run ads, but Amazon's spending beyond the schedule. Can you please guide? I'm guessing when you say schedule, are you talking about the schedule? Set a schedule to run ads. Spending beyond the schedule. Are you talking about budgets? That's my understanding, because to me, if you're talking about budgets, specifically the account level budgets, that's the only way I could understand like this question, because Amazon doesn't really allow you to schedule things. So let me know if you're not talking about budgets. I apologize. I'm going to assume that you are. And if you are, well, there's a couple things to know, is that budgets, when you're talking account level budgets, if you go into settings, there's two things. One, Amazon elects to allow themselves the ability to spend up to either 25% more or 100% more than your daily budget if you have unspent budgets other days in the month. So the way that they do it is they will take your budget. So say you have a daily budget of like $50 and there's 30 days in the month. So Amazon's going to take your $50 and they're going to multiply it by 30 and go, okay, we have $1,500 to spend for this entire month. Now we're going to get close to your $50 every single month, but we realize we're going to go a little bit up, we're going to go a little bit down, and a little bit up and a little bit down is going to be based on, are you going to allow them to spend up to 100%? So can they go up to $100 a day? Again, if so, if one day you only spent $30 and the next day you only spent $20, well, technically there's $50 left because those 2 days, so one day you had $30 left of extra budget, the other day you had $20 left of extra budget, and they're going to take that and they're going to apply it to other days in the month. Well, if you had one day where if you were allowing them to do up to 100% increase, then one day they might spend $100 because what they're doing is they're pulling that 30 and they're pulling that 20 from those other days where it was unspent. So technically, if you get towards the end of the month, you will have spent that 100 and 1,500, or that's the maximum that you'll be allowed to spend, but they kind of shifted around a little bit during like the actual days, which can be alarming when you go in and you're like, wait, my budget was $50. Why is Amazon spending $100? It's really annoying, but that's the way it works. And the other thing to keep in mind is that sponsored display ads and sponsored brand ads, those campaigns, that ad spend is not included in the daily budget. So it only applies to sponsored product ads. So even if they only were spending $50, well, if you were already spending $50 on sponsored product ads and then launched a sponsored brand ad campaign, and that campaign budget was, say, another $50, you still could spend like $150, even though your daily budget was $50. Or no, 50 plus 50 is 100. So you can still spend like $100. So that's the way budgets work. If you were referencing something else, let me know. But again, based on how the question was posed, I'm assuming you're talking about budgets. All right, how does PPC work when you share the listing with many sellers, where your ads only show when you have the buy box? Yes. Your ads will only remain active when you have the buy box for sponsored product ads. If you have a sponsored brand ad that is directed to a store page, then your ad will still show if you don't have the buy box. So do keep that in mind. And I believe sponsored display ads directed to a store page, because you can do that now, also have the same philosophy. But if you're running sponsored product ads, then those will not show when you have the buy box, which actually is kind of, it's a double-edged sword. So like, great, we're not spending to make our competitors money, but we're struggling against that for some of our clients who don't, who have other people on their buy box. There's some specific reasons why that happens. And yeah, it kind of creates an issue because sponsored product ads typically have like, they get you the most volume in terms of ads. And they tend to perform best in terms of like conversion rate and impact on ranking. But if you don't have the buy box, that creates issues. I optimize a campaign through bulk files and push those that have good ACoS. The next keyword for performance was bad, just getting clicks, no sales, even though we didn't do optimize them. So what to do? My answer is going to be the same as before. So when something is, quote, not working, you want to identify what was the thing that was working and that is no longer working. So in terms of ACoS, or in terms of the keywords, you want to know, is it because we're not getting impressions? Like when we were getting orders, what was driving those orders? Was it good conversion rates? Are you getting less clicks? Are you showing up on different placements? What was present in the data when things were working? And then when things weren't working, what changed? So if you have campaigns that have different match types, so like broad match, phrase match, autos, and those, I want to go all the way down to a search term level. So this is actually a method that we used, and we were able to find that like a negative keyword was added that was blocking something. So we went down, we're like, oh, it was this one campaign. Okay, so like we were getting a lot of impressions and then we weren't. Okay, what happened? Well, all of a sudden, this one keyword that was driving a ton of sales isn't driving sales anymore. That's interesting. Okay, so this is a phrase match. All right, so what search terms were triggering? Oh, this one search term was triggering, and then all of a sudden it stopped triggering. What happened? Okay, so then we went back and we looked at the history inside of that campaign, the history of changes. We're like, oh, on this date when something changed, we added a negative keyword. And that ended up blocking the search term. And so we removed the negative keyword and things went back to normal. So you basically want to know, like, what changed, what was present before that is no longer present, and then is there a way in which we can revert things or figure out what happened. And the other thing to note is that this last year, like this last week in December and then on into the new year, sales just go down, conversion rates just go down, everything doesn't work well. And so just be prepared that that kind of downtrend is going to be perfectly normal this week. And although we should be optimizing for it, the downtrend is due to changes in consumer behavior, and ads can't fix consumer behavior. You can only optimize for it. I was asking, is this live? Yes, this is live. So if you have an Amazon ad question, feel free to drop it in the chat. So yeah, we're about 30 minutes into it. I got another 30 minutes to go. We got still Amazon ad questions rolling in. So format for this, if you have an Amazon advertising question, use the chat in whatever streaming platforms you're watching from. Drop your Amazon ad question into the chat. I'll pull it up. I'll get you the best answer possible based on my years of experience in Amazon advertising and also my finger on the pulse of what's happening now and all the cool stuff coming out. How to target variation. Should we target separately or should we target in a single campaign? So what you want to do is you want to have a two method, two strategy approach. For your what I deem as generic keywords, meaning the example I have always used is like metal water bottle. If we have a purple and a blue and an orange and a black variations, no idea which of those the customer is searching for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a campaign with only my best performing variation being advertised for that keyword. I'm actually going through this with a brand that I'm consulting on right now. And what they've done is they have separate campaigns for every single one of their products, which is great. They're also advertising the exact same keywords, the generic keywords, in all of those separate campaigns. And what's happening is some of them are doing really well, and then some of them are completely wasting money. And basically what I told them, I was like, hey, let's just pause all of the generic keywords that are wasting money on the variations that aren't performing, because you're actually hurting yourself here. So for those keywords that are really important, put your best foot forward, advertise the best-selling variation. Now, for all of your specific keywords, so the purple metal water bottles and the orange metal water bottle and the black, all of those keywords that are specific to a distinct style, color, variation, whatever the case may be, those ones you want to make campaigns for only those variation products, and then you put those, so you kind of, that's what I said, two-pronged approach. So these are my generic, my non-specific keywords. These ones get the best sellers, and then anything that is specific to a variation, I'm going to advertise the variations that are relevant for it. That's our two-pronged approach. Last 3 or 4 days, our click-through rate went drop awful because the performance is good. Is it because of the holidays? Most likely, yes. Whenever you have like ship times went past Christmas, everything just gets terrible. And so, yeah, it's kind of normal. The other thing is we use click-through rate as a barometer, is what I would say. It is an indicator of something, but I would never solely optimize through click-through rates. Just like I don't ever recommend only optimizing for a placement, by the way, because there's very few things that I have control over. As long as ACoS is great, everything else is great. I could care less what the click-through rate is. Now, if I'm trying to determine, is this a good keyword? How does the market resonate with this keyword? Click-through rate is fabulous there, but it is a piece of information and is not the most important piece of information to optimize for. Just FYI. Cool. What are the best practices for creating an effective Amazon PPC strategy for a new product? Figure out where the product fits in the market, validate the keyword targets through very targeted advertising, optimize from there. So let me tell you how to actually do those things. 1, figure out where your product fits in the market. The easiest way is to figure out where are products like mine sold and well ranked on the platform. How do you do this? You figure out those products. So you find your highest relevancy, most search keyword. So what is that top keyword for you? It is going to be specific to your product. Which products are well ranked on this keyword that are like my products? Grab about 10 of those, do a reverse ASIN search. You can do Helium 10, Jungle Scout, whatever. Data Dive is another great one for this. And then once you figure out that, then you're going to go through that list of keywords and say, all right, what makes sense for me? You're going to pick probably about 10 of those keywords. You're going to launch them aggressively in sponsored products exact match. And you're going to use that to validate that your product can get seen and sold on these keywords. Not every single one of these keywords is going to work. And in fact, if you predetermine that all of these keywords must work, you're going to lose a lot of money. So we figure out where we best fit in the market. We validate, meaning where do these keywords work? Which of these keywords work? And then we optimize from there. Optimize from there is going to be, all right, now that we know that these 2 keywords work for us, what else can we do? I can target products that are well ranked on these keywords. I can launch an auto campaign. I can find long tail variations of these keywords. I can find other like keywords with a specific root phrase in there. Expand based on what you know works. What strategies can be used to lower the advertising cost of sale? When it comes to Amazon advertising, there is only 2 things you can do to lower ACoS. You can lower how much, what your cost per click is, what your average cost per click is. How you do that is you do really good bid optimizations. So bid optimizations is at the core of it. The second thing that you can do is increase your conversion rate. Now, this is easier said than done. And the trick to increasing conversion rate, I'm only talking ad optimizations. I'm not talking listing optimizations or image optimizations. That's you need to have a good image. You need to have a good listing. Providing that you have a good listing and good images, the thing that you do from an advertising optimization standpoint to increase conversion rates is you pick better keyword targets and you spend more on the ones that convert well for you. One way to do this is through campaign budget control. So picking good keywords, good bid optimizations, that is what lowers your ACoS. Have you ever faced a situation where you're running a ranking campaign and set spheres very high, much higher than suggested for top of search, still no impressions are coming? Yes, so you want to just keep increasing your bids. So what we actually do, I went back through and I reviewed with my team. I was like, hey, what are we doing for ranking? What we will do is typically for about the first week, what you need to do is you need to adjust bids about twice a day. I know that sounds intense. It is intense. I talked to some I was consulting with some brands in the space and I'm like, hey, look, you got to adjust bids twice a day. And they're like, that seems like a lot. And is there any way to automate this? And I'm like, not really. You kind of have to do it manually. So is it a lot? Yes. A lot of times the things that get the best performance are the things that are labor intensive. So you got to decide, how much do I care? How much do I want to put effort into this? If it's something you want to determine you want to put effort into, so you're going to determine which keywords you want to go after. You're going to launch those in sponsored product exact match. It's really helpful to put these campaigns in a portfolio. Also, we're launching these in single keyword campaigns as well. And so you want to go in there and you say, oh, where am I not getting impressions? And I'm going to increase these bids. You want to make sure that you're at least, your goal in the beginning is to optimize for impressions. If you're not getting impressions, you need to increase the bids. I wouldn't worry about the placement percentages. I'm just trying to get through bid optimizations, nothing else. I don't give a crap if it's top of search, rest of search. I don't care where these impressions are coming from. I'm looking at the keyword level. I'm not looking at placements. I'm saying, are we getting impressions? You want to make sure that your bids, oftentimes what happens is that the suggested bids, you'll notice these increase over time. So again, we're checking twice a day. Our goal is, are we getting impressions? And if we are getting impressions, then we can leave it and we can wait for the clicks to roll in. If we're not getting impressions, then we'll increase the bid. So if our bid is below the suggested bid, then we're going to increase it at least to the suggested bid or slightly higher than the suggested bid. If our bid is above the suggested bid and we're still not getting impressions, then we're going to increase even further. We might increase 10 or 15 cents. Oftentimes we'll increase 25 or 50 cents because, again, our goal is impressions here. If you worry about profitability in the beginning, you're going to lose. And then we validate that the impressions are coming, and then it's up to the market to determine if they're going to click or not. When I say the market, I mean shoppers. Our goal as advertisers is to gain the impressions. So you just keep increasing, and you increase at a very rapid pace and quickly, quick cadence. That's how you get good performance on launches. If you put bids and you say, they're higher than suggested, and you leave it for like 5 days, tick, 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 clock is ticking. And that's days that you could have been validating keywords. So go in, adjust rapidly, wait till impressions come in. Once you're getting 1,000 or so impressions, then you know you should have at least gotten 1 click. If you're not getting 1 click, more impressions come in. It's maybe not a good keyword, so then focus on the ones that are getting clicks and the ones that are getting sales, and then you pivot and adjust from there. What advanced tools or software you recommend for managing, automating PPC campaigns? So, I mean, what are we using? We're building internal software. I, for the longest time, felt like I should just be like plugging and playing with software. I had talked with my ad managers and what we were doing, and we had an internal algorithm that we built. And I'm like, I don't want to say that like, it's not like there's no other people building really great software out there. But when I talk with my ad managers and we were talking about the results we were getting, when it came down to it, it was like, we can't replicate what we're doing, and what we're doing freaking works. So we ended up hiring a developer, and we're building our own internal tools. That being said, from an analytics standpoint, it's really difficult to replicate some of the tools out there, just because when it comes to analytics, looking at things like conversion rates and there's so many things you want to track. So for that one, we do have an external software, which is called KPOQ, K-A-P-O-Q. Been using them for about 2 years. Love them. Fabulous. Highly recommend. It's more of an enterprise tool, but we leverage it so much that at this point it's kind of indispensable. From an you want to be very careful, and you want to never get to a place where you're going to say, oh, this is fully automated and I'm not even going to check it anymore. The minute you do that, you've lost your edge as an ad manager. So if you're in the beginning stages, depending on how much ad spend there is, you can do a lot with bulk files. Just like building your own system, spreadsheet based, super nitty gritty with bulk files. That's what we did in the beginning for the first couple of years. And again, we've since moved on to like automating when I say automating, I mean like instead of having to manually download everything, you can show up and just the data's there. That at scale is very helpful, but the underlying algorithm and logic is something that we had to work through. And you can do that a lot quicker with spreadsheets than you can with like an automation tool. So I'd recommend that. And it's a lot cheaper. Bonus points. How to identify what strategy on a unit set percentage and average order value are good, but now bad sales drop, and how to get back so you can reach again. Tell in simple way. Well, if your unit session percentage and your average order value are good, but now bad, so that means your conversion rate dropped. So if your conversion rate dropped, it's typically like if it was good and it dropped, it's either a market trend, meaning everyone's conversion rate dropped, or it is you are no longer as appealing as the market. So you want to figure out what that is. So the best way to do that is to go into brand metrics, because brand metrics is going to give you the average conversion rate for the category, and then your averages. So you could say like, all right, is it us, is it me, or is it the market? And then you can also look at the search query performance reports to say, okay, is it me or the market? What's the average conversion rate for, some of my top keywords? Has everybody's conversion rate dropped, or is it just mine? If it's everybody's conversion rate, then it's a market trend, and in some ways you might just have to write it out. If it's just you, that means your competitors are doing something that you're no longer as attractive as you were before. So have they lowered price? Have they added coupons? Are they optimized their listings and you haven't? What changed? Yeah, so you're saying how to identify a market drop. So that's it. Brand metrics, search query performance report. You could also look at Helium 10's search volume to see if it's just less people searching. But that would be not so much looking at the unit session percentage. That would be like if your traffic dropped, you want to see if that's it. The best way to do it is look at your top keyword, go on Amazon, search your top keyword, look at the search page. There's so many analysis and data things and things that we look at that are incredibly helpful, especially at scale. But what I want to know is, what do the search pages look like? Another example would be I've seen search pages where it used to be a grid, meaning there's 4 across, and all of a sudden Amazon changed it to a single grid where there's only one product. That's more prevalent in electronics and stuff. But if you go from a grid to all of a sudden you only have a single product per line on a search page, all of a sudden your conversion rate will drop, your traffic will drop, everything will go off a cliff. And you're like, what the heck? And then you go look at it, you're like, oh, so now where I used to be able to rank on spot 20 and still be on page 1, I gotta rank it in spot 5 or nobody can find me. That's a huge difference. So things like that. So looking at, again, how does your conversion rate stack up? Brand metrics, search query performance report. What do those search pages look like? If you go on your search page and all of a sudden you're like, oh, every single one of my competitors dropped their price by $2, you're no longer as competitive as you used to be. So you want a holistic view of everything as well. How can we effectively use search term report to optimize Amazon ad campaigns, improve performance? 2 ways. So 1, you want to look at what search terms are not converting for me that I'm paying too much for, and you add negative keywords. So filters for this, you're going to go in, you're going to filter by orders equals 0. You're going to sort by either clicks or spend, highest to lowest, and you're going to look at that report and be like, oh, so this search term is getting 20 clicks and no orders. Maybe you should add that as negative. So you just want to look at where are all the clicks going and spend going, and you're not getting anything for it. Add those as negatives. And the second thing you can use it for is to find new keywords to target. Actually, fun fact, your search term report is going to be the best keyword research tool out there. Bar none. Why? Because you actually have data on how your specific products perform on those exact search pages, versus when you go and do keyword research, you have no idea if it's going to work or not. There's no data, right? You make your best educated decisions based on your knowledge of Amazon advertising and how things work, but you don't really know. Where with search term reports, you are much, much more confident in things. So you want to look at your search terms and you say, all right, let's now sort by sales. Or let's look at where we have good orders and low ACoS. And you're going to say, which of these search terms am I not targeting as a keyword? And then those will be what you can build new campaigns around. For keyword research, how much keywords you need to target for a product? What is the best filter to find the best keywords? Yep. So if you're doing a product launch, you want to target roughly 10 keywords is a good benchmark. You can go a little more, you can go a little less depending on your budget, but starting out with 10 good solid keywords, 10 to 15 is probably a good start. And then again, span out from there. You're definitely going to want to have more than 10 keywords you're advertising on, but 10 is a good start. And then filter to find the best keywords. Relevancy. Relevancy is everything. When it comes to ad performance, there's two things you can do to have low ACoS or more profitable ads. One is not pay as high a cost per click. The second one is better conversion rate. Cost per click control is bid optimization, but the second one in good conversion rate is picking better keywords. So make sure whatever keywords you pick have good search volume so you can get seen by more shoppers. And then you want to know, how specific is this to my product? That's what you need to focus on. All right, how to control low conversion days like Christmas on campaign level portfolio, reducing bids, bid adjustment, or budgets. Also, do people still add products to carts, so we should not reduce spend drastically? Yeah, be careful over optimizing. You definitely want to optimize any clicks with no sale keywords are going to be where the most of your budget's wasted. So you want to go in and make sure targeting tab is the best for this. You can look over the last couple of days. Where am I getting a lot of clicks and no sales? Make sure you optimize the bids for those. But if you need to control spend quickly, the best way to do things quickly is through budgets. I know a lot of people talk about bid optimization, and I just talked a lot about it and how it's like one of the most, if not the most important lever when it comes to Amazon ad performance. That being said, a lot of times good bid optimization is methodical and done over time. And so because good bid optimization takes time, if you need something to happen right now, you need to buy yourself that time. And so we recommend leveraging like budget adjustments, so limit budgets on the campaigns, especially the ones with high spend and high ACoS. You can limit the budgets for those. A more drastic measure would be adjusting the overall account budget, but you definitely want to just recognize that anytime that you limit budgets, you're limiting your impressions, but that's kind of a trade-off because we want to limit spend. And the bonus points for limiting budgets is it allows you to kind of keep the bids where they were, which when traffic comes back up, and it will, and when conversion rates come back up, and they will. Now, they won't be as high as they were peak Q4, so do be aware of that. You still want to do your regular bid optimizations, but it means that you don't have to be as drastic with your bids. And the other nugget of wisdom I will give you is when it comes to like these like large fluctuation times, you want to adjust based on shorter date ranges. So typically speaking, we will adjust bids looking at like a 14-day look back window for most optimizations. But because if we factor in the last 14 days, we're going to factor in when like peak conversion rate and peak Q4 performances. Well, we're going to end up like bidding up on things we shouldn't be bidding up on. So we want to adjust based on like a much shorter time frame to say like what's happening right now. How do I adjust for what's happening right now? And then that will lead you to make much better decisions. And that's actually one of the problems with a lot of optimization tools this time is they keep looking at like longer look back windows. And unfortunately, a lot of the performance in those look back windows just isn't applicable right now. And so it kind of creates a host of issues. All right, and with that, it looks like we got to the end of the questions and also the end of our time together. So I really, really appreciate all of you showing up, asking questions, always fabulous questions, always a lot of good information, hopefully shared through me answering these questions. And if anyone is trying to figure out and get more out of their ads, feel free to check out our website, junglr.com, and feel free to book an Amazon ad audit. So if you're like, I know I can get more out of my ads, I know there's things that I'm missing, I don't know really what they are, how can I improve? That's precisely what our audit does. You'll book a call with me, we'll go through what do you want out of your ads, and then we'll build you an ad audit that will cut through the noise, give you that 80-20, what to focus in on, how to grow your account, to set you up for success going into the new year. And with that, I appreciate it. I will be here same time, same place next week. So feel free to show up next Thursday as well for more answers to your Amazon ad question. Thanks, everyone. And that wraps up this episode of the Ask Junglr Amazon Advertising Podcast. I hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your Amazon PPC journey. Remember, if you have a burning Amazon ad question that you'd like answers to, head over to junglr.com/live to join our next live Q&A session. Until next time, keep optimizing those ads and stay hungry.